Welcome to another edition of the Heron Outlet. She is Alex Winley. I am Ian Hest. And Alex, it's game week. Oh, that feels good to say. Finally, game week. The opener of the season will be this Saturday from Drive Pink Stadium. Inter Miami takes on CF Montreal in not only the opener, not only the home opener, but the season opener as we get all of the openings out of the way right in week one. There's so much to get to as we get ready for kickoff. But, Alex, I wanted to start the show a little different. We had the chance to have our own little kick around the other day when the first annual media match took place. Your team, Heartbeat, 3-1 winners over my team, La Noche, in a very, very talented would be a strong word, so we'll say lack of talented affair. There was a lot of fun and a great event. We got to sample some of the new food that's also coming out this year and play on the field, which was a very fun experience. But to the winners go the spoils. Alex, congratulations. A well-earned victory for you.
Yeah, Team Heartbeat, we did the thing. I was mainly a defender, but Jenny Chu and Igor Mello really hard carried our team essentially, and yeah, we had a really solid foundation. They were passing the ball back around, and we had spacing, and the defense was balanced with the offense attack, and yeah, it was really fun to witness, and got to you meet a lot of cool people. It was a great event by Inter Miami, and we tried some of the food that they're having at Drive Pink this season. It's going to be really great, and even their performance director Garrison Draper, I believe that's his name. He had some of the snacks that the players eat, and they're very tasty and very the science behind it was really great and interesting to see what goes into the Inter Miami players when they're on the field or in the 80th minute when they need a carbohydrates boost or whatnot. So very fun. It was the first inaugural event, so next year I'm assuming they'll have another one. So, good fun. I'm sorry to Team La Noche. You guys tried. The jerseys look great, but
The
teamwork
jersey
just
does look
quite
great.
wasn't there. I think the teamwork wasn't quite there, but it was all in good fun, and we had a good time.
We looked better than we played. That's for sure. You
Yeah,
said before we started. You said before we started recording today that the key to you guys beating us was that you were good at passing and we couldn't pass the ball, which is very
yeah.
true. We were
Well,
we were a bull in a china shop trying to just everybody run forward.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I did
yeah. It
want
was
you and
really
I were
crazy,
like
honestly.
matched up 1v1, and I wanted to get the ball. I was calling for it. I couldn't get it, so we could have had our
Yeah.
one shining moment.
Mm. Yeah. It was fun.
But yes, like you said, a very fun event, a very nice way to start the year. We also got the chance to sit down and really have some nice time to sit and talk with Phil, with DeAndre Yedlin, with Joseph Martinez, Leo Campana, Nico Stefanelli. So that was really, really nice as well, which leads us right into game week. And let's waste no more time, Alex. This is a fun time of the year always. Everybody always wants to get back into action. The stands will be packed at Drive Pink Stadium, which is always great to see. But it does come with a very difficult start to the season for Inter Miami, who plays back to back to back in weeks 1, 2, and 3, the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference standings from a year ago. They open with Montreal, then they host the Philadelphia Union, the defending Eastern Conference champions, before the road test comes with a team that eliminated them in 2022 from the playoffs in New York City FC. So with that getting started, you have a terribly tough schedule to start the year. Terribly tough schedule, period. Miami, I believe, is the only team that plays the top 3 teams from 2022 in both the East and the West. They'll get LAFC, Austin, and FC Dallas at some point throughout the season. So with that in mind and knowing all of the slow starts that Miami has had the past couple of years, what are you looking for in the importance of this Montreal game to start? Miami was so strong at home last year to try and get points early and not be chasing the entire season like they were last year.
Yeah, it's important. Excuse me, to get a good start. Like you said, they are playing Montreal and then Philly and then New York City FC and I believe Cincinnati after that. I have to double check, but yeah, it's a difficult opening schedule, but it's an opportunity for Inter Miami. You know, a lot of the preseason predictions have them, you know, finishing as low as 14th, which is a little bit harsh for people. You know, they don't necessarily cover the team and they get a lot of their takes from stuff they see on Twitter and they don't really do their due diligence. But you know, I think that's a little harsh for them. So they have a really good opportunity to change that narrative by picking up potentially some wins. You know, Miami are a very good home team, and um, you know, like you said, you know, Montreal, and then they've had Philly, two back-to-back home games, and while Philly may be the better team, Miami are very good at home, and maybe they can sneak a win there as well. So, you know, let's see how that goes. But getting a win against Montreal will get the season off on the right foot. Um, and it'll set the tone for the rest of the year because the games after that are difficult and Miami will be able to shut down a lot of doubters if they are able to get some good points in these next couple of games and they can go and kick on their season and have it impact the rest of the season.
Montreal is going through a bit of influx. They lose their coach Wilfred Nancy, who heads over to the Columbus Crew. Hernan Lozada now in charge of Montreal, who also has had a very, very confusing offseason. They don't have a home kit as of right now. They wanted to make a home kit that was done with the help and assistance of the indigenous populations of Quebec. And apparently it took too long, or they're still trying to get in contact with everybody. A very confusing statement that they put out there a couple weeks ago. But regardless, they start the season without even a home kit. They've been playing in just those grays. But they do bring back a lot of starters. Victor Wanyama returns. They had as a designated player who really was if you remember back in the return leg that they had was very formidable against Inter Miami last year in going up against Gregory and Jean Mota and trying to take them out of the game sort of head to head. That'll be a very fun battle to watch. Montreal probably typically normally goes with that 5 at the back that we've used to see. It's a 3 that mostly plays as a 5. And Inter Miami is saying that they're going to go with this 4-4-2 diamond, the 4-3-1-2, however we want to call it, for the time being. So tactically, right off the bat, how do you see that happening? Where is Miami going to have their strengths? Where's the vulnerability as we head into the start of the year?
Yeah, I don't think Montreal will stick with that back three. I know Hernan Losada is their new coach and whatnot, but from reports that during preseason they've gone with like a 4-4-2 with two strikers up top. Kind of a flat 4-4-2 though. So yeah, that will probably maybe match up well against Miami. I know they played um, Austin FC the other day when they were playing a 4-2-3-1, and you know Juicy was kind of pushing up as a second striker, and they were able to find a good amount of space and stymie whatever Austin was doing. So if Montreal go with that flat 4-4-2, then I can see Miami having some numerical advantages. But if they go with the back three, I think Miami will remain flexible, and they have the personnel now to switch seamlessly between positions anyway. So I think Neville will do his due diligence and pick the right formation, like you said. I think it'll be a 4-4 or 4-3-1-2 with Campana and Joseph up top, and maybe even Bryce Duke playing as a 10, maybe Stefanelli. I don't know, but Bryce Duke when he came on against Austin, he looked really good and fresh, and he got an assist as well. So Miami have options up there, but whatever it is, I think getting a win would be very important for them because the next game is against Philadelphia, and we don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah, I thought that Bryce Duke, you mentioned, he looked great in those last 30 minutes. Really was a game changer for Inter Miami in that. And it did go with the formation change, but it'd be interesting to see him in that role. Phil, I got to talk to him yesterday and sit down and talk about. He had mentioned before the start of the season so much about wanting to be fully healthy. They more or less are heading into the season. Obviously, no Noah Allen, who's out for the next several weeks. They will do without Edison Ascona for a couple of weeks as well, maybe into the month range. who suffered an injury as well. His World Cup coming up is not in jeopardy, I'm told. So he will still be available for the Dominican Republic to captain the Dominican Republic in the upcoming World Cup. We know obviously that Robbie Robinson has been going and dealing with some injuries throughout the preseason, and he will not be available, or most likely will not be available for the opener against Montreal. But outside of that, well, pretty much everybody. Robert Taylor was not at the Austin FC game, the last preseason game. That was because he was back in Finland getting his green card. So that's very exciting for him. He will be coming back to the States as a green card holder, which means also that he no longer takes up an international roster spot. That frees up another international roster spot, which is very interesting as well. So that's good for him to come back to that. And past that, they're healthy. They have a smorgasbord of options to go with. Phil had said 21 outfield players were in training, so you can only select 10 of those. And knowing that he really has a lot of options to work with, I would predict that we won't see much of a different lineup than what we saw against Austin. Maybe one or two changes. But he also did mention that, prior to that Austin match, some of the guys, he singled out Joseph, who didn't play very much towards the end of last season for Atlanta, was still trying to get some fitness in. Some of the new guys, Stefanelli and Negri, just trying to get acclimated to the climate, to the amount of games in a certain amount of days, and getting back into the thick of it. So if you expect those guys to go, you expect those guys to be stalwarts, but there are options down the line if things do change. From there, how do you see with all of these options to start the year that Phil, you mentioned he probably goes with the 4-4-2 diamond or the 4-3-1-2. Do you see any radical changes, or probably he's going to start with what we've seen for much of the preseason?
Yeah, I think I'll start with what we've seen. I think instead of Robert Taylor, obviously Pizarro will start, and maybe Bryce Duke, depending on Stefanelli's fitness, as the 10. But yeah, I think it'll be consistent. I think even if Negri, Stefanelli, Joseph aren't fully, and Christoph as well, if they're not ready to go full 90, I think they'll probably get pulled at the 60th minute or 70th minute anyway. I don't think they'll go a full game, but Miami have options on the bench, whether it be Bryce Duke or Lacava or anyone. They're pretty deep in that regard. Victor Joel can even step on. Yeah, Kremeshki. They have a bunch of options now, so I think it'll be pretty consistent. I don't think we'll see any too many surprises. Maybe just depending on fitness, we can even see Harvey Neville at the left if coming in for Negri if he's he gets tired eventually. But yeah, I think it'll be consistent. Even Coco Jean can play up as a 9 or a number 10, or even if they switch to formation to a 4-2-3-1. Coco Jean can play on the wing, so I don't think there'll be too many surprises or anything of that nature. But yeah, I think it'll be pretty consistent.
Yeah, just looking at the power rankings on MLSsoccer.com, it lists Inter Miami as 25th. That they will be third from the bottom in the Eastern Conference. Only DC and Chicago are below them. And to say that's kind of pretty low to start. It talks a lot about Leo Campana is back, it says, but Gonzalo Higuain and Alejandro Pozuelo are not. So you have to wonder where goals are going to come from without them. I have doubts they're going to come from putting Joseph Martinez in a two-striker system, but that seems to be what Miami are doing right now. That's the MLSsoccer.com, guys. If you want to check out where their analysis of where Inter Miami stands, I get the point there. It seems very I don't know. Let's say basic is kind of the easy way of putting it. Yeah, like I get that Gonzalo is gone and Alejandro Pozuelo is gone, but it seems to be like more broad than the nitpicky of what this team has done, the improvement that they've shown. And like there are some I would say causes for concern, right? That they didn't get a win over an MLS side in the preseason, so that will be definitely something that comes with a grain of salt as you head into the regular season. But like you mentioned, this is a Montreal team that is very different from a year ago, and I could see them trying to or being able to sneak out some points here to start the year, especially with a ramped up crowd. It's going to be packed at Drive Pink Stadium. And I think that, to put them third from last, let's talk about that for a sec. They only have DC and Chicago lower than Miami, and there's a big gap between even who's fourth to last, that being Montreal. There's 5 spots before you get into Montreal, New England, Charlotte, Columbus Crew, Atlanta, etc. That MLSsoccer.com believes will be fighting for those final playoff spots. Do you agree with this, Alex?
Where Miami's standing? No. I think what they're doing is oversimplifying it. A lot of the criticisms they have for Miami is, Joseph and Campana don't press, which is weird because Pozuelo and Higuain didn't press either, and arguably Stefanelli, the guy who's replacing Pozuelo, does more defensive work than Pozuelo ever did. But you're losing the offensive assisting that Pozuela had, but it's strange, Joseph and Campana and Stefanelli. They're all 3 of them are workhorses, and we've seen them press. So I don't know where that's necessarily coming from. Number one, number two, yeah, there are some concerns about Miami. Just I know MLS, they like the DPS, and they love teams that build around one guy. Look at Portland and Evander, or Orlando and Martin Ojeda. They love to hype teams that, have that one guy that will be the guy. Miami don't necessarily have that. They have a bunch of players that will be able to contribute. And unfortunately, Joseph Martinez was that guy in Atlanta, but, his stock has kind of fallen since that. So they probably don't consider him to be that main guy in Miami either. So, yeah, I think it's a little harsh. And I think they're simplifying things based off of players that left instead of the players that came in. I know, league has a lot of, there's a lot of teams in the league, so it's difficult to get to all of them in detail. But I think they're selling Miami a little bit short in terms of, the amount of players that they brought back and the players that they brought in to strengthen certain spots. And yeah, as far as that goes, I think Miami, well, since the playoffs, the top 9 teams get into the playoffs. We'll touch on the format later. I think, yes, Miami will make the playoffs. They will finish top 9 in the East at least. But yeah, I think they're selling Inter Miami a little short. Having them finish third from the bottom of the East, just because Pozuelo, Higuain. It's crazy to me because Pozuelo and Higuain, they never pressed either, at all, and we know that. But they're saying Campana and Martinez doesn't. What they do. Even more so than what Higuain and Pozuelo were doing, but. Yeah, that's all up to opinion, and obviously we have to wait and see. But I think it's a little odd that that's their talking point when that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because Gonzalo also, let's not forget, was the set piece taker and penalty taker last
Yeah,
year. So Phil joked around that whoever's quickest to grab the ball probably will get penalties to start
yeah,
the year. That they have a couple of options now in terms of penalty kick takers. Um, you know, whether you want that to be Joseph, whether you want that to be Campana, whether you
mm-hmm.
want that to even be Mota, who will probably Mota will probably be the ones taking free kicks and corners to start the year. But you definitely have certain options that you can go there. Let's talk about the new playoff format. It was announced that, like you had said, the top 9 teams will now make the MLS Cup playoffs. The top 7 teams will immediately go into the quarterfinals, 8 versus 9. 8 will host 9 in a one-off to see who gets that final spot. Not very unsimilar to what the NBA did a couple years ago before they started the 7 versus 10 thing. That is still similar in the style of how it goes. And then those quarterfinals will be best of 3, which I find very interesting. No ties in those games. And from there, it'll be one-offs all the way to the final. So just your initial thoughts on the playoff format. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Where does it benefit Miami? Does it not, in terms of, they knew what the goal was, and now that the goalposts have sort of moved in terms of what qualifies for the playoffs and what qualifies for home field advantage now?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I don't mind. I do. My biggest issue was the amount of teams getting into the playoffs. I think it devalues the regular season. Mainly, that's my biggest gripe. Miami can basically coast until the second half of the season when they sign, if they sign a certain Leonardo Muschetti, if that's the case. Um, but yeah, other than the amount of teams going in there, I do like the play in round. Like you said, the NBA does it, and it was a pretty big success for them, and it's really great, and it causes more chaos. Yeah, I don't mind that. Like I said, I don't like the amount of teams. I like the play-in round. I don't mind the best of three thing. I think it gives more importance to the home. Excuse me, my brain is not working. Home advantage, because if it's best of three, if it's a two-legged playoff rate game, one team will just bunker until they get home, and that you don't get good football. But if it's best of three, usually teams will go for it in the first game, and then the home team has more advantage in that regard. So while there's a lot of things to like, a lot of things to dislike, I just don't like the amount of teams going in there. Like if you look at the West, if the top nine make it, and there's only four Western teams that won't get into the playoffs, which is
Five.
yeah,
There's
it's just
14
it's
in the
two
West.
five.
15. Yeah,
Yeah,
14 in
so
the West,
like it's
15 in the
just
East this year.
yeah, it's just too many teams getting in, I think, and I really think it just devalues the regular season and yeah. I don't know, but that's my only gripe. But I do like the playing round. I like the best of three thing. Honestly, I like this is a pipe dream of mine, but I feel like when once MLS gets to like an even Eastern and Western set of teams, I just want them to have a every team plays each other home and away, and that'll deal with a lot of the unbalanced schedule things. And I like the playoffs, but I don't know. I kind of want to see one year MLS just do a top to bottom, first place gets the trophy type of thing. But I do like the playoffs. But I don't know. MLS, they're a league that likes to experiment, and yeah, who knows if this thing, if the playoff settings don't work out this season, maybe in the next 4 years they'll change it again. So we don't know.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah, I
that's
do
what
have an
I
issue
think.
with the amount of teams, and
I think
yeah,
that that's where we're heading. Like I've long said that I think that the end game here is 32 teams for MLS, and they'll break it into like four pods of 8 teams. You play every team in your pod home and away. That's 14, and then you play every other team in the league once. That's 24, and you have a 38 game season. Like I think that that's probably the end goal, end game here. That makes the cleanest, most sense. But for the time being, when you have 29 teams, how are you going to figure out an unbalanced schedule? It's very difficult to do. I like that you mentioned how many teams get in. Remember, Nashville moves from the West to the East this year. So they're back in, and a much improved Nashville team, obviously with Haney Mukhtar and them guys, because it's the Haney Mukhtar show there. It's Haney Mukhtar and
and they have
defense.
no central strike. They have no central striker though, so it'll be Haney
Right.
Mukhtar hard carrying the rest of the team.
Right. I mean, they are good defensively. They're a very good defensive team.
Yeah,
But yeah, that they're going to be. I think they'll be one of the better teams in the East. But regardless, I do like if you're going to do the best of three to disallow ties because, like you had mentioned, in a
yeah,
two-legged tie, you can hunker down until you get to your home game. In a three-game one, let's say right the higher seeded team hosts the game one, obviously, probably, then the visiting team can just play for a draw and then do the same thing where all they need is to win their home game and not lose, and they'll be able to advance. This forces teams to have to win games, which is a very good thing. I just don't like the best of three for just one round. That doesn't seem to make much sense to me. Either like it needs to be consistent throughout the process or it's a little useless. Like I don't really love what is it in the is it the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup? I forget which one, but they do a two-legged draw only in the semifinals. And that's just weird for me. Like if it was one-offs the whole way, keep it one-off the whole way. If it's two legs, then two leg. Like I would prefer the consistency. I also would prefer to have known this in the off season and not a couple of days before the start of the regular season. I think that does a
typical
disservice.
MLS.
Yeah, but it does a
Yeah.
disservice to the league. I do think that, I mean, you can say, well, whatever, it doesn't matter, like it's done now, and that's true. But like, is this such a is this such a you know time consuming thing that there is no possible way this could not have been done at any point, at any point in the year, right? Like it could have even been done in the middle of last season to say this will be instituted in 2023. Like you could have done it in the off season, you could have done it in the preseason. At any
Literally
point,
at
you could
any
have done
time.
this, and it's not even like the playoffs are close away. You could have just announced this, even if you don't have the details, and figure it out. Like there's so many ways that just announcing it 3-4 days before the start of the regular season just seems very off to me. Anyway, Alex, let's talk about who's going to get into the playoffs this year. We're going to do some predictions as we wind down this episode, and get ready for kickoff. Let's just go through and try and do who we think is going to make the playoffs, and then we'll do some Inter Miami superlatives. I think we both are in agreement that the Philadelphia is probably the favorite up top, still the defending Eastern Conference
Mhm.
champions. But after that, now no team's going to get a bye anymore, so that first overall seed might not be as important as it was last year. Who do you think will be in that middle of the pack range?
I don't know. I think the East is a toss up, really, other than the Union. I feel like people are overestimating certain teams and underestimating others. I think it'll be kind of a free for all, really. Um, I think people are. I don't know. I don't know. It'll be hard. I don't like doing predictions because soccer is it's so crazy and you can never really predict anything. And if you go back and compare the preseason predictions for 2022, everyone had an Inter Miami. Most people had Inter Miami finishing at the bottom. And most people had teams at finishing top five that didn't even make the playoffs. For example, Atlanta was one of them. A lot of people had them finishing at least top five, but they missed the playoffs. So predictions are crazy, and I it's hard to predict. But I'll just do top five. I think in no specific order. I think Philadelphia, the Red Bulls will stay good. I think Orlando will probably be up there, and um, I don't know. I know. So Philadelphia, Red Bulls, Orlando. That's three. And I honestly, after that, I feel like a lot of it is a toss up. Maybe the Crew get better. New York City FC, I think they'll drop a little because they lost a lot of, most of their MLS Cup winning starting 11. Um, Atlanta, I think they're gonna be a little better, but still struggle. Charlotte could be a little better. I think Toronto will get a little bit better, but not, you know, world beaters. I think Miami are better than what people are expecting. There's literally no bias. I think this is coming from people who see the team work and hear and know what's going on. I think they'll be better than what people are expecting. DC and the Fire, not a lot of people are hyping them, but they could surprise everyone. But let's see how it goes. I think that in Nashville, of course, they're gonna, draw everyone to death with their bunker down soccer and Hani Mukhtar up top alone, if unless they get a striker. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see how it goes. But the East will be interesting this year. Like you said, there's no bye. Top nine get in. I think Inter Miami will definitely make the playoffs with that, baseline. But I think it's definitely a toss up. I think the West is more easy to predict than the East right now.
I
But
agree. Yeah.
yeah, let's
No, I
see.
definitely agree with that. I think that the Union are clearly the top seed, the top team, the defending champs that are pretty much the same team that won the East. I think that there's a defined bottom four, I want to say. Of I would put Chicago in there. I would put DC in there. I'd put the Revs in there, and I'd probably put Montreal in there just simply because there is so much unknown about uh, how much of it was Wilfred Nancy, how much of it was a system. They're 1 year older. They were an aging team as it is. Can they keep up that sort of physicality and punishing style that they had last year? So much of their success was built into their style of play that with a new style, I don't know how long it'll take or if it'll even be successful. So I think Montreal will have a bit of a rougher year this year, and I don't really think that they'll make the
I
playoffs, to be
agree.
honest with you. And then I think outside of that, when you go 2 through 11 from there, I think it's really anybody's game. I do think Orlando's going to be much improved. They have a very hyped off season with their moves. A lot of people like them, and they're a very sexy pick right now. I would say
Yeah.
Cincinnati is another very improved team that I think is going to surprise a lot of people. I Nashville is going to be there. They're just going to be a thorn in everybody's side the whole season long. NYCFC is an interesting one. They lost Maxi Morales. They lost Alexander Callens. They lost Sean Johnson. I mean, that's a lot of talent out the door. So, I mean, I don't know. NYCFC could have a drop off. You mentioned Red Bulls. I'm not a believer right now. I think that they could struggle early in the season,
You
especially.
think so?
And yeah,
Yeah.
I don't. They have a lot of MLS guys that are overperforming, I think, and the regression to the
Mm.
mean might be coming. That I don't know if
Mhm.
those guys playing up to that level they can do for a second go around. So yeah, I could see Inter Miami probably if I'm being like cautious, conservative, I'd probably say around like a 6 or a 7 seed. But I could see them getting into that top four if they really impress. And then I could see them fighting for that ninth seed if they can't find goals and they give up one in the first half like they did last year, and now they don't have that 80-minute magic. So that's really the seesaw battle that I think Inter Miami is going to have. Ultimately, I do think that they'll be in the playoffs. I think that they'll be one of those 5 through 7 seeds, though.
Yeah, I agree. I think. Oh yeah, yeah. Yes, you stole my didn't steal my point, but you brought up a really good point about Inter Miami. Maybe not finding those goals, but to me, I feel that I don't know. I feel like Joseph just brings a different like hunger. Higuain was scoring, for fun, and I will say a lot of his goals did come from penalties, and Campana did score more from open play, but um Joseph just brings that hunger, like he wants to score. We saw him against Austin FC. There were several chances, like he had two, three, four chances to score, and Neville after the game said that that's Joseph not even fully fit. So imagine a fully fit Joseph with that combination play between him and Campana firing on all cylinders, and like the defenders, they don't know, they're not going to know who to excuse me, they're not going to know who to press. If you press Joseph, then Campana's open. He can score. You press Campana, then you don't want to leave Joseph open. And then this is so random, but like John Mata, I know people give him flack for taking those long shots, but as a defender, you don't know whether to step up to him, and if you do, like he'll just pass it to Joseph Stefanelli Campana, or if you back off of him, he can hit a long shot from there, and he scored a couple of them. So Miami have a lot of different dimensions to this attack, and even then, we've even seen against Austin as well that they're able to switch formations mid game with some substitutes. Like they went from a diamond four to a 4-2-3-1, and you talk about
Seamlessly.
goals that right after that, yeah, right after that formation change, they scored. I believe it was Bryce Duke getting an assist with a Coco Jean coming on, and he scored a whopping goal. And then not long after that, Pizarro scored, basically reintroduced himself to the fans, scoring a top bins upper 90 golazo. I'm so sorry about my voice, but a top, like an upper. I was screaming during the media game during the back
That's
line.
what it was.
I
Yeah,
was on the back line, so
arguing with the ref.
that's why my voice is gone. Yeah, that's why my voice is gone. But like, yeah, with Pizarro, he scored that goal and he reintroduced himself to the fans. So yeah, like I feel like this Miami attack will have different dimensions, and I know like the idea of having a like this star guy like an Higuain or Fazzuelo is ideal in MLS, but I feel like that's a blessing and a curse because how many games like when Pozuelo got suspended against the Red Bulls or Higuain was out due to injury or something, Miami played bad without them, and they didn't really have a plan B. But with this group, I feel
No,
that they have different options now, and they don't have to rely on a central guy, and that it's difficult for other teams to game plan. They can't just say, "Oh, just hard press Pozuelo or hard press Higuain and eliminate them out of the game," and Miami don't know what else to do. But with this current Miami team, you have Bryce Duke who can score, Pizarro who can score, Robert Taylor, Stefanelli, Robinson, Lacava, Martinez, Schneider Borgelin now, Leo Campana, and in the summer, Miami will now have um, an international roster spot, and some money opening up in the summer if they want to add on as well. So I think this team will, like you said, if they're not maybe scoring, maybe 90, but I think if they really get those combinations down, like we saw during the Austin friendly and in other friendlies, they could be really difficult to man mark and press, especially with this wonky 3-1-2 diamond that they're doing. There's a lot of natural angles for them to pass through. Excuse me, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see how Miami play against the Montreal, not the Montreal Impact, CF
I
Montreal.
still want to
Oh
do it.
my word!
It still
Yeah,
gets me. Yeah, but then again,
it's
I still want
hard,
to call
but
Red Bulls the Metro Stars, right? So
oh, that's true. Dallas Burn.
yeah, exactly. Well,
What
did you see
yeah.
that they incorporated it into
Oh,
their
their
jersey
kit.
this year? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
very
that's so
cool.
sick. I want
Yeah.
Inter Miami to do something similar with the Fusion, but I know they're not going to touch that with the 10-foot pole. But that would have been cool. But yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I think this Miami team interesting, but yeah, let's see how it
it
goes.
was it was interesting too. Just on that real fast, I did get the chance to
hmm
talk with the marketing guy that created the design
Oh,
for La
Michael
Noche.
Ridley.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I got to talk to him yesterday,
Michael
and
Ridley.
like really interesting how it all came together. It's a really
hmm
nice kit. I got one because of the media match. But
Yeah.
but the way that it all came together. But I did ask him about a third kit, which everybody laughed at. 'Cause the team doesn't want to go there. Apparently, you have to wait a couple of years. I didn't know this, but
Ah.
you have to wait a certain amount of time after once you're as a club in MLS before they allow you to do a third kit because they try and create the brand of the colors, right? Miami is pink and black, pink and black, pink and black. And so they want to hammer that home before they'll introduce a third jersey. So that's why I didn't know that because I've been asked a couple of times about a third kit. And so I took the opportunity, and that's apparently your answer, everybody. So
Yeah, I
back
will say
yeah.
Miami are going into their fifth year next season, which is crazy to think about. Like in hindsight, the amount of obstacles this team has gone through, but they're going into their fifth year next season. I don't know what the time limit is for a third jersey, but it could happen in the next 2 or 3 years, realistically. Maybe I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. What is their third color? Was it blue? Was it gray? I don't know. There's a
I
lot of
think they'll do
options,
like a
but
Miami Vice like aqua thing.
that would be cool. Like
You
the
know,
Miami Heat sort of. Yeah, those are a lot
yeah,
of,
and
yeah.
well, the
I'd
other
do
thing
that.
too is the colors of the city of Miami are orange and green. I don't know how much they want to be associated with the Canes too, but
Oh,
uh,
that's true.
you always could do that.
Oh, that's true.
Anyway,
Yeah.
though, back to on the field, or not even on the field, but sort of at looking at this team in this season, because the one thing that I think that everybody overlooks with Miami, and this is where they got a lot of extra points last year from these two very intangible things. One, Inter Miami probably has the best locker room in the Eastern Conference and maybe in all of MLS. Those guys genuinely like each other. They're friends. They hang out together. Like if you go to practice, it is always competitive, but always like very good energy. There is a ton of good energy that just comes from that training pitch every single day. They have really done a good job at cultivating a great locker room that really has everybody able to communicate with them and be on the same page. That I think is very intangible. The other thing too is Inter Miami last year were the fittest team in MLS. They can run with you for 90 minutes, and so I think that no matter what, Inter Miami can get back into games even when they're out, when it's seemingly out of it. The thing that Phil had talked about yesterday too was wanting to get into the situation where you can hopefully relax, get a 2-3 goal lead, heading into the 75th minute. And that way you're not constantly having to do these miracle winners. That's probably a place for improvement that they want to do. So when you look at how their season's going to go, those are some intangible things that I don't think necessarily will ever show in a box score, but will be very beneficial for them moving forward throughout this season when you have teams that will not be as fit or may not have, the same locker room chemistry that Inter Miami does heading in. With that said, Alex, we're going to hold you to three
Mhm.
predictions, the same ones that we did last year. Where's Inter Miami going to finish in the East? Who's going to be the top goal scorer? And who's your surprise player that'll have a breakout season for you?
All right, it's that time of year again. Okay, I will say top scorer. I'm gonna go with Joseph. Honestly, I think
Wow.
leaving Atlanta, he's got it. Yeah, I think he has a chip on his shoulder. He has a son now. He's super friendly guy. I'm sure he has always been. He's settled down and he wants to prove that he still has it. Watching him against Austin FC, that convinced me. I was like, okay, this guy, and that wasn't even a fully fit Joseph. That was Joseph at like 60%. So you get a fully fit Joseph who's motivated and wants to bring glory to Inter Miami and a new legacy at another team in the league. I think he'll be. I think yeah, yes, I do think he'll be top scorer. I think him and Campana will be racing towards that. And I think Joseph will score more than 10 goals. I'll say he'll get around 15 goals, and Campana will get like about 13, maybe 14. Yeah, yeah, I'm convinced now about Martinez after seeing him live. He looks hungry, he looks fit now. Like, yeah, I think he'll be top scorer. What were the other two? It was top scorer. Where's Inter
Where they're
Miami
going to
gonna finish?
finish and a
Yeah.
surprise player.
So yeah, I think Miami will finish sixth, maybe a little bit higher. I don't think they'll move up. They won't move down. I do think they'll finish in yeah, sixth place, maybe seventh. I think they will make the playoffs. I'm convinced they will make the playoffs at least, especially with 9 teams getting in. There's no way that they don't. Even last season where they were playing without a DP for most of the year, they still managed to make it into the playoffs. So I think they'll finish sixth, maybe fifth. I know at the tail end of last season, remember when they were pushing for a home playoff spot, but they lost a couple games that kind of messed them up. I think that'll be similar. I think they'll be in the mix to maybe get a like a I don't know if there's home playoff spots now. I don't know, but they'll be in the mix to get like top five. But maybe they'll finish fifth or sixth or fifth. Um, Surprise player. I think Jake LaCava. We were talking about him off air and we mentioned him a couple times throughout the podcasts that we've recorded. I think he'll be really good. I think he was tearing it up in the USL with the Rowdies, and him coming to MLS, he looks super motivated. He's got the tattoos going. He's young, he's hungry, he's quick. He's good on the ball. He can even he can get in behind. He can play back to goal. He's versatile. I think he's hungry as well, and yeah, I'm glad that Miami were able to snag him because I think he'll be one of those players that people don't mention him, but at the end of the year they're going to be like, well, who's this guy? And how did Miami get him? He was so good for them. So I think Jake LaCava will be that breakout player this season, like Bryce Duke was last year.
I like it. I like it. Going off the book here, off script. I like it. So
Yeah,
I agree. What was it?
yeah. No, I was agreeing with you. Yeah,
So yeah, no, I like where you're at. I'm tempted to go fourth. I really I
really.
think that
Yeah, I
this
don't.
I think this team is going to surprise people.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it down to road results. How well this team does on
Hmm.
the road will be whether or not this team hosts a playoff game. And I'll put that number at 20. If they get 20 road points this year, that's getting a
Hmm.
point in basically half of your road games, right? You could go 6-2-9 on the road, and that's your 20 points. If you can do that, then I think that this team will be a top four team in the East. Um, I unfortunately I don't know if I'm a believer in that just yet. So I'm going to go fifth, but I do think that this team will turn some heads. This team will surprise people. This team will pick up results that you're not expecting it to. It's still one of the toughest places to play in all of MLS, not only because of the heat and humidity, not only because of the travel, but the fans make it a very difficult
They
environment
make it
for it.
loud.
They
Yeah.
make it loud. Those metal bleachers, when they're stomping on them, are like the stadium shakes. I mean, they have
You
done
can
a
hear it
very
in the
good
press
job.
box.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can hear it through the
and
walls.
and you
Yeah.
know that they proved last year that they can outrun you in late games. They're going to pick up points there. So I think that this team will be a force to be reckoned with. I don't know how long of a playoff run that translates to, but I definitely think that this team will surprise people, and they're not towards the bottom like a lot of people will be talking about. I think that Miami's sort of been this punching bag for, oh, they're always going to be terrible. They wanted to be a big club and they're not. That's butt of the jokes, all that. And I think that this is a year when they're really going to pull out some results that's going to surprise people. In terms of uh, top goal scorer, I can't believe you're not going to go with Campana. So thanks for the layup. I'll take Campana all day. I think that this is a year where he wants to show that he's worth the designated player money. He is now permanently transferred from Wolves in the Premier League. So I think that he has a lot to prove this year. He's heard a lot about getting a partner in Joseph and having a partner last year in Higuain. I think that Campana really will want to make a name for himself league wide as a prominent goal scorer in MLS. So I'll take Campana to get close to, I'll say, like 15 goals. I think he can do it. He's
Hmm.
definitely capable
That's
of it.
fair.
I definitely
Yep.
think he's capable of it. And I think the defense will be much improved. I don't think that they'll give up as many goals as they did last year. So that'll
Kristoff,
yeah,
Sergey.
Christoph Negri,
Sergey.
like
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So
One
I,
one quick thing, and
yeah.
during the friendly, like I think we both agree, like Sergey, like he was super solid. Like I know Damian Lowe was traded away, and he was a fan favorite, and he was really good, and his underlying numbers were great. But Kristoff just gives them a like you mentioned, Ian, like you said, like his composure is like scary, like to the point where you're like a little concerned, like why is he so calm? But yeah, I think yeah, Kristoff is
he's
a big reason why that I think the defense will be improved.
he is a serious guy, but like serious in terms of he takes his responsibility very seriously. And you want that from a center back, which is good.
Yeah.
In terms of a breakout player, I think that this is also kind of a layup. I don't know if I need to take another one because of it, but I'm going to go with Stefanelli. Everything that I've seen from him is the makings of an extremely talented attacking midfielder in MLS. He has the type of game that fits this league very well. He's a student of the game. He loves to study games. He loves to study all the opponents. I was talking about it with him yesterday. He loves just really being just a student of the game and getting to really show what he can provide for Inter Miami. So those are my three. I'll take the easy road. I'll take Campana and I'll take Stefanelli. I do think Bryce Duke could have a
Yeah.
wonderful season as well.
Yeah, he looked really good against Austin FC, and like he came on, had an assist. He was training with Atletico Madrid over the off season, and yeah, I think this is Rice Duke could be that one player that in a year or two's time that Miami can his performances warranted him going to Europe or selling him on to Europe. He's that talented of a player, so let's see how he continues to play this season, but we know he's going to play a big role in Miami this year as well.
Alex, before we go, let's touch on the She Believes Cup and the U.S. women's national team as they're going to have the Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand coming up in just a couple of months. It'll be here before we know it. Some interesting results. They got wins, but definitely room for improvement, especially in the midfield.
Yes.
And I think that there's a bit of a fear that the Americans are not as dominant, especially in that area of the park, as they once were. And I guess, what did you learn from those games? Are you more confident? Are you less confident heading into the World Cup and what the U.S. women's national team can accomplish?
I am less confident. Honestly, they're missing that midfield bite, Ian. And I think with the injury to Sam Mewis and then Julie Ertz is out, like they don't have a number six like that. That's just pure defensive ability and can scan. Julie Ertz is a monster at that. Like she covers ground so well. They do have Andy Sullivan who's doing well, and I think Vlatko Andonovski will call her up to the World Cup. But they don't have that single number six that can just be that dog in midfield. I know Crystal Dunn, she's a natural fullback. She's a natural right back. I know Vlatko has put her at left back, but she's not really comfortable in, but she plays well, and she can also play in midfield. But I think that midfield is kind of scary, especially without that anchor back there. I know, obviously attacking midfield, Rose Lavelle, she's there. She's a baller. Sophia Smith can play there, although she's a central forward more so. I think the defense for the U.S. is solid. Becky Sauerbrunn, and Elena Cook. I don't know if Elena Cook will be starting. I think it'll be between
No.
her and Naomi Girma.
Yeah.
I believe that's. I want to pronounce her name correctly because, she's great. Yeah, Naomi Girma. I believe she won an NWSL Rookie of the Year at one point. Super talented. I'm really high on her. But yeah, I think it's the midfield for the U.S. I'm concerned about. But that attacking front line is so nasty with Mallory Swanson now. She got
I was
married,
going to say, it took
Alex
you forever to name
Morgan.
Mallory Swanson.
Yeah.
She's been the whole team the past couple of games.
Yeah. She literally is the only team she was literally the only one scoring goals. Ian, I don't know, but Alex Morgan is there, Sophia Smith, they are stacked with the front line, and
they have so many weapons that it's tough to think
it's so
how do you define bad here, right? Because they have so many weapons that it's so confusing why they look so lethargic, and that's probably going to be what is the storyline heading into this World Cup for them. Let's not forget they have a fairly difficult group with the Netherlands, Portugal, and Vietnam. Portugal punching their ticket actually this morning with a 2-1 win over Cameroon. So they have the Netherlands, which is much improved. Portugal, which is now starting to invest in the women's game. So you wonder how much how far behind Portugal is compared to some of these other countries like Germany, like France. It started really to invest in the women's game. To close the gap with the United States and Brazil and Canada and Sweden that we've seen in recent years. So I think that they'll have a difficult group, and the road will come with definite challenges. The rest of the world is a lot better now, but the U.S. is still the standard bearer, and they still come in as a favorite every single time, right? Even when Brazil is having a down year or Germany is having a down year on the men's side, you still expect them to come to a World Cup and be a contender for the whole thing. And the women are that, for their game. So I definitely have cautious optimism. It didn't look great, especially against Japan. But there's still wins, right? They're still winning these games. So I think that'll go a long way. Alex, the season is here. It is upon us. February 25th, just a couple days away this Saturday at Drive Pink Stadium. Miami will take on Montreal in the 2023 season opener. Are you ready? Are you excited? We are here at the Heron Outlet, and we will have coverage for you throughout the entire season. For our producer, Andres, for Austin Roblark, she is Alex Willie. I'm Ian Hest. Make sure you follow the Heron Outlet on Twitter, on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and subscribe to the heronoutlet.substack.com. You can get all of our season analysis as we go throughout the year. We will have weekly game updates around the league, player profiles, some fun stories in store for you as well. You can follow all of it there at the Heron Outlet Substack. We will see you when the games have started.